If your ex seems unaffected by your breakup and you're confused as to why they're so cold to you, well, then you came to the right place. So in my opinion, there are 3 core reasons for why exes will seem unaffected by breakups. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, there's a lot to cover here, so let's just jump right into it. So the very first core reason is your ex already broke up with you before the actual breakup. So what the heck's going on here? How can this happen? Well, it's best to think of it as a mental breakup before the actual breakup eventually occurs. Once again, I'm going to refer to my relationship death wheel to kind of illustrate this point. If you don't know what that is, it's basically a special graphic that I put together that shows the life cycle of a relationship from the pre-coupling phase to the post-coupling phase, all the way up to the pre-coupling phase again. So basically there are 8 main stages to it, as you can see here. You have stage 1, they want someone to love them. You have stage 2, they find you, they think their troubles are over. Stage 3, they start to notice some worrying things. Stage 4, they start thinking of leaving. Stage 5, they actually leave. Stage 6, they're happy that they left. Stage 7, they start to feel kind of lonely. Stage 8, why is this always happening to them? A lot of the victim mentality there. So what is particularly of interest to us for this discussion right now is stage 4. So literally, that entire stage is about your ex getting the idea to leave you and then mentally preparing to leave you. So they're going to be thinking, what are they going to say to you? How are they going to say it? When are they going to do it? And in a weird way, during stage 4, the I'm thinking of leaving stage, this can literally begin or kick off the stages of grief for them. You know, the denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. And this actually might be the reason why we hear so many stories of what an ex was like before the breakup and all the crazy behaviors. You know, maybe they were overly affectionate with you, which can be denial. Maybe they would fly off the handle with you for no reason, which could be anger. Maybe they try to make some big show of a commitment, like talking about moving in together or going ring shopping, bargaining. Maybe they just grow sad and despondent for no apparent reason, depression, or they grow cold or disinterested, acceptance. They're literally preparing themselves for the breakup so that by the time the actual breakup occurs, they have already gone through the stages of grief that are typically associated with this kind of loss. You start yours up, they've already done theirs. They seem like they don't care, but we both know it's far more complicated than that. So that's one possible explanation for why exes may seem unaffected by the breakup. But the next explanation sort of requires us to once again use the death wheel, but for an entirely different reason. So the second core reason why I believe exes can seem unaffected by breakups is sort of the separation elation explanation. Now, we're literally just talked about this concept in an article that I wrote yesterday, but I figure I go a bit deeper since it's really relevant to what we're discussing here. And I'll start first with a random Reddit comment that I stumbled across while researching this article. So when asked why an ex may seem unaffected by their recent breakup, this comment summed it up best. This person said, as a guy, let me tell you this. Your ex has not forgotten about you or moved on. It may appear like it, but it will eventually hit them. Now, what is it that they say from the mouths of babes? There's perhaps no better explanation of the separation elation period than that sentence right there. It may appear like it, but it will eventually hit them. So for those of you who are counting, the separation elation part of the wheel would be really stages 5 and 6, where your ex decides to leave the relationship and then they are so happy that they left. They're having the times of their life because they left. They go through an initial separation elation. And if you want the technical speak, then look no further than Avoidant Resource free to attach, which basically states that after a relationship ends, people with an avoidant attachment style tend not to show much anxiety or distress, often feeling an initial sense of relief at the relinquishing of obligations in the sense that they are regaining their self-identity and not tending to initially miss their partner. This is separation elation as the pressure to connect is gone. But just like that person above said, the separation elation period is temporary. Eventually the breakup will hit them. At first it may appear like your ex will forget about you, but eventually the toll will be collected. And yes, our death wheel graphic includes that as well. Stages 7 and 8. I'm starting to feel kind of lonely. Stage 8. Why can't I ever find the right person? Now the unfortunate trick with this one is that there's really no way to tell if this is the core reason for why they feel unaffected by the breakup, other than to simply wait and see how things play out. So with the first core reason, you can sort of pay attention to their wacky behavior in the weeks leading up to the breakup. With this one, you just need to kind of wait and see if the separation elation period wears off. So specifically, I want you to pay attention to if your ex is reaching out to you in the future, wanting to relive a trip down memory lane. And this can happen in a lot of ways, but probably the most obvious way is they bring up a very emotional memory. Like, hey, remember when that was really great? Something along the lines of that is a good sign that your ex fell victim to the separation elation thing. And that leads us very nicely to core reason number 3, which is something I'm calling loud versus quiet. Again, I hate to pull from the article I wrote yesterday, but yesterday I talked about how the revenge motive can play into post-breakup behavior, how there are 2 extremes to it. There are the quiet extreme and the loud extremes. Well, it turns out that putting up a front works the same type of way. There are literally 2 things to pay attention to when your ex is putting up a front that they are okay: quiet and loud. And then literally with this, there's no in between. They're either loud or they're either quiet. And each is pretty simple to identify. So one of the ways that exes will sort of overcorrect and look like they're unaffected by the breakup is through the extremes. So they'll post things on social media to try to make you jealous, or they'll directly tell you how good they are doing without you. Those are loud behaviors. And then of course there are the quiet behaviors. There's the blocking you and then unblocking you. There's the ignoring you and then blowing up on you and then ignoring you again, and back and forth. So the pogo sticking effect. So the only prerequisite for this is that your ex is acting in ways that aren't normal for them. It's sort of like the idea of overcorrecting, and I think How I Met Your Mother did a pretty hilarious skit on this. Now the point is that your ex is overcorrecting due to the breakup via loud and quiet behaviors. What's even more interesting is that the loud and quiet behaviors all have one thing in common. They are there to prove to you how little you meant to them, but the mere fact that they are engaging in those behaviors prove that you did mean a great deal to them. And as my colleague Tyler Ramsey is known for saying, the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. Now, the one final thing I'd like to say to you today is that from my perspective, because I'm not close to your situation, it's really easy for me to be impartial. I can point to an ex and easily say that they aren't unaffected. But because you are so close to the situation, it's probably going to be harder for you, especially if you have an anxious attachment style, to do the same thing. And I say this not as a derogatory thing to say, but as a way of helping you understand that in my experience, individuals with anxious attachment styles tend to have an inclination of expecting the worst case scenario. So when an ex seems unaffected by the breakup, they'll take that to mean that they meant nothing to their ex at all. They'll go to their own extreme. And the first thing you should always do after a breakup, though, isn't to really focus on an ex. It's to focus on creating healthy habits to help you gain a more secure understanding of yourself. Besides, it's extremely rare to deal with an ex that is completely unaffected by a breakup. And I really doubt that yours is the exception to the rule.